All right, so giving yourself the time to just rest for the beginning of your practice here. So using the supports you like to create more comfort in your body. Bringing a pillow or a bolster under your legs can help bring more space into the lower back. So keep that in mind, or feel free to just simply have your feet on the floor, knees bent. And just wiggle around and sense the ground, allowing the back of your body to rest into the support of the floor. So it helps to move a little bit through the shoulders, through the hands, and into the head and neck, just to notice how these places feel and whether you're holding any tension in them, and then let them soften and settle in a way that you can let go of any sense of holding within your body, little by little, breath by breath. And let your eyes close and allow your whole face to relax. And feel the muscles around your eyes soften. And release any tension from the jaw, letting your jaw wiggle and move a little bit to encourage the lower jaw to soften away from your upper jaw. And as you let the back of your head settle further into the floor, feel the spaciousness across the front of your chest. Feel the width of your upper back resting. Notice where your back ribs make contact with the ground. And feel the back of your pelvis, the base of your spine, resting into the floor. And feel the softness around your hips. Letting the length of your legs relax from your hips down through your thighs. Letting go of any tension there. Relax through the calves, into your ankles, and out into your feet. And then let your awareness rest around the belly. And feel the softness of your belly. Notice the space around the navel, relaxing, letting go of any holding here. As you breathe in, can you allow your belly to gently expand? And as you breathe out, can you feel your belly softening and settling again? And as you connect with the movements of your breath into your belly, you'll notice, like we just said, the rise and fall of the belly. Can you also sense the movement downward with the breath? So as you're inhaling, as the breath moves into your body, there's an expansion in all directions, not just up through the belly. But feel as though you have a balloon inside you. And with each inhale, there's some expansion outwards, from front to back, from side to side. And from top to bottom. So feel your whole abdominal space, expanding outwards with each inhale. And then drawing back inwards towards the center with each exhale. And can you also sense, as you notice these movements in that whole abdominal space, the movements traveling down into the pelvis, the pelvic floor, allowing the pelvic floor to respond to the movements of each breath, just as your belly does, and just as your lungs do. So follow the full expansiveness of your inhale from top to bottom, from front to back, side to side, and everything in between. And then feel the slow release of your exhale as you let out all the breath gradually and evenly. Where can you allow yourself to relax a little more? So now as you keep this connection with your breath and with your whole body, resting here, start to move into your hands, your fingers, and your wrists, on your toes and your ankles. And taking in a couple of deeper breaths here, you can open the eyes and enjoy a full body stretch. So this is a nice way to just check in with how you're feeling as you find some length, and feel free to wiggle and stretch any way you like. Kind of like a cat waking up from its nap, just enjoying a bit of stretch in any way your body's wanting. Nice. And then let's go ahead and bend the knees, and we'll hug both knees into the chest. And let's start to find maybe a little rock, rocking side to side. So we're going to get into, I think, the hips a little bit today. Last week we did a lot of spine movement, pelvic movement. And this time we might find more stability in the pelvis and core while we're moving more into the hips. So maybe we'll first just explore some pelvic tilts just to get a sense of our pelvis and our core a little more. So let's bring the feet to the ground again, now with the knees bent. And arms can rest out, away from your sides, or you can bring your palms, hands to touch the belly. If you find that feedback helpful for this, feel free to do that. And relaxing into the shoulders and into the neck and the head. And let's just get a sense again of the breath. Feel as you breathe in, the breath drawing down towards the tailbone, the pubic bone, lifting through the belly. And the lower back starts to arch away from the ground. And as you exhale, Can you draw sort of up and in through the pelvic floor, resting through the belly to try to flatten your lower back a little closer to the ground. So with each inhale, let everything relax and expand. And let the pelvis tip forward. And with each exhale, let some action draw up and in. That's it, as you're flattening the lower back towards the ground. Just notice that motion with your breath's rhythm. And rather than using the glutes a lot when you tip the pelvis back to curl the tailbone up, flatten the low back, that action. So try not to clench or move or use, the glutes too much, and find more of the action drawing up through the pelvic floor. So you're drawing in and up through the pelvic floor as you're resting the belly in and down. Letting everything relax on the inhale as the pelvis tips forward, and then finding the drawing up and in with the exhale to release the low back closer to the ground. And so noticing this nice rolling point of contact you're creating from your tailbone to the back of your waist, and from the back of your waist down to your tailbone. And the rest of the spine will respond. Notice those movements rippling up into the neck, and even feeling little shifts of weight into the back of your head. You might be able to sense that as you move with each breath. Okay, so with those pelvic tilts, we've sort of loosened up through the low back. We've brought the breath nice and low, brought some awareness to the breath. Now let's try to find where our pelvis can sit in a more neutral shape, rather than tipping forward to arch the low back, and rather than really pressing the low back into the floor. We're going to try to do neither of those things. And instead, what you might do is just take your hands to your hip bones on either side of the front of your pelvis, and feel the base of your spine, your sacrum, and that's the very bottom of your spine where it connects into the pelvic bones. So it's sometimes referred to as the back of the waist, or the back of the pelvis, or the base of the spine, and it's both. All right. So you can imagine the center of your sacrum and try to find center. So you're not tipped down to your tailbone, you're not back to your low back waist area, nor are you tipping over to the right or to the left. And you might actually just do those little tips to the right and to the left a couple times just to get a sense of where center is for you, Yeah. All right, just shift and move the pelvis. And that alone is, a bit of a learning curve as well, just to know how to and feel and move the pelvis. So just notice what you feel. And then as we find the center of the sacrum, let's keep ourselves there. And bring the hands to the belly. And feel the belly as though it's widening out from the navel in all directions. Sort of like you have arrows out from the navel, expanding in all directions like a clock. And so you can visualize the belly sort of widening out from that center point, from the navel, out in all directions, while you stand more weight actually into your right foot to lift the left foot off the floor. And notice if your belly is sort of pouched up into your hands, and see if you're able to maybe lower your foot again, rest and widen through the whole whole belly, as you notice also what's going on in your ribs now. So the backs of your ribs can stay in contact with the floor as you lift your left foot off the ground. All right, so let's keep the left foot off the floor, and what we can do is just rest the hands somewhere on low ribs, upper waist area, just to notice what's going on in that space. And let's go ahead and stretch through the left leg towards the sky. So we've got some length going on into the heel, spreading your toes back towards you for a moment. And then let's go ahead and slowly point the toes and lower the leg long down towards the ground. Just before it lands, maybe let it hover for a moment and then bring that knee back in towards you. That's it. Stretch the heel away so we get some length in the back of the leg for a moment. Point the toes, feel the leg reaching away from your hip as it's lowering, and only go as far down as you can go before you either meet the ground or your low back arches away from the ground, okay? So let's keep it going like that. I like to exhale when my leg is going down to help find and feel the support of the core. So I'm trying not to let the ribs hike up towards the sky, trying not to let the pelvis tip down towards the tailbone. So there's no movement in the pelvis or the spine or the ribs while we're trying to feel the motion in the leg from the hip through the knee, ankle, and toes. Next time we lower the leg, just as low as again, it can go before your low back arches and your spine moves. Let's pause there. And we'll push through the heel now and keep the leg straight as we lift it up. That's it. And then point the toes and lower the leg down. Try that a couple more times. When does it make sense for you to inhale and for you to exhale? Where do you feel more supported with each breath? Good. Let's go for one more and just check in with your shoulders as well here. See if they can do a little less, you know? Keep some softness through the jaw, the shoulders. All right, let's lower the leg all the way to the floor. Give it a little shake if you want. As we lengthen through the left leg along the ground, we're going to maybe notice a bit of space coming into the front of this left hip because you might have felt a bit of work there in that hip flexor. So let's go ahead and hug the right knee in while we keep the left leg along the floor. And we'll just be here for a couple breaths. Feel the breath move in. As you exhale, maybe that right knee can sink in a bit closer. But just as important, as you inhale, soften everything, let the breath draw down and expand the belly. Knee might move away. And the exhale can bring it in again. Good. So let's move on from there. We're going to release both arms out to the ground so they're wide out like a T shape. And so let's try to keep the right heel sort of pulled in close to the glute. So there's a little bit of tension we're creating to keep the heel pulled in close while we draw circles with our knee. So we're trying to feel the movement primarily in this right hip socket. Okay, so we're trying to minimize any movement in the pelvis again. But also, you know, keeping the breath easy and fluid. So we're not, you know, bracing, we're not clenching the jaw, but we are creating a bit of tension around the hip joint while we're moving it. So pull the heel towards the buttock. Maybe even imagine you're moving a bit through resistance, through thicker air. Yeah, or in water. And let's go in the opposite direction. So it really doesn't matter necessarily the size of your movement. You can explore a couple different ranges. But really what's mattering is you're aware of the movement. You're aware of the breath. That's it. And you're trying to maintain some stability in the pelvis, in the waist. All right, really good. And then from there, let's find a twist as we come in and out of this twist. We're going to let the knee fall out to the right a little bit, and then bring your knee across your body until your right hip starts to lift. But as you do that, you might roll your head a little to the right and then come back again. Head to center, knee open to the right, knee across as your head turns to the right. So you're maybe just letting your head go in the opposite direction of your knee, and you're feeling now, we're allowing the movement now through the pelvis. So we're coming into the twist through from the bottom up, basically. Shoulders are staying put. Nice. Getting a sense of how this feels in your spine, in your low back, and in your hip. And then this time, let's let the leg come across, and we'll pause into this twist for a couple breaths. So if you've got your block handy, you're welcome to use it here underneath your knee to catch your leg at any height, of course. That works for you. And you can relax and rest your head a little to the right and enjoy the space into the right side. So can you feel again the expansiveness of your inhale? And with each exhale, can you find a little more length from the center through the leg, the bottom leg, away from your head, through your spine back, even as your head might rest a bit to the right. And if you want to extend some length through your right leg, go for it. Moving a little more from the knee through the calf and into the foot. So you're waking up your whole body in this movement and finding and sensing your whole body as you feel where the breath flows. Nice. All right, bend the knee again. Let's take our time to unwind onto the back. All right, so just notice, wiggle around and notice what you feel through each hip, each leg, each side of the body. And let's once again maybe move the pelvis around in some pelvic tilts forward and back. Maybe even some movements of the pelvis a little side to side, so that once more you can sense your neutral shape in your pelvis, where your pelvis can sit in the center. The weight is resting into the back of your sacrum, and you've got your spine relaxed, resting within its natural curves here into the ground. So keeping the hands, if you want, you can have them on your belly still. While you bring more weight into your left foot this time, let's slowly lift the right and notice if your ribs have lifted or if your low back has sort of flattened more into the ground. That means you've tipped your pelvis back, so you might just revisit that movement again. Belly broad, lower ribs resting into the body while the right foot lifts. All right, let's go for that slow movement now through the right leg. Up first through the heel, point the toes, reach the leg long, lowering it down towards the floor, just as low as you go before you notice your whole back wanting to move, or your waist. Just keep it going. Each time you bring your knee in, notice whether that hip sort of wants to hike up towards your shoulder. If you're moving or shortening the right side of your waist, it means there's pelvic movement or spine movement, right? So maybe slow the motion down. Try to feel the movement just in that right hip. So maybe the knee doesn't come in quite as far as you're wanting it to, and that's okay. That's it. And you're also being honest with yourself about how low the leg can come to the ground before you lose that support in the middle. Noticing whether, that's it, your ribs want to lift, and can you rest them into the floor even as your leg lengthens and lowers away from you. Nice. So this is a great movement to just enhance and get a sense of the core stability, but also moving into the joints of the leg. Let's go for one last one. Feeling the breath. How does your breath support you through this movement, right? And then let's pause with the leg hovering off the ground. Reach through the heel so that we can slowly lift the leg as slowly as you can. That's it. And then point the toes and keep the leg straight as it lowers again. Try that a couple more times. What's going on with your upper body? Can your shoulders release closer to the floor? Can your jaw soften? Find more of the support from further down with your breath, with your belly, with your pelvic floor, trying to feel those areas and how they respond. Let's lower the leg all the way to the ground. Rest it, relax it, shake it out. And as the right leg rests on the ground, let's hug the left knee in this time. And we'll just pause here. How does it feel to find a deep crease in this left hip? If you're noticing any kind of grip or tightness in that hip flexor, sometimes it's helpful to bring your thumb into that hip crease and just sort of encourage that area to release and soften, massage into it, yeah. And finding that deeper crease to draw the knee in more comfortably. Nice. So as we maintain this length through the right leg, even kind of press down a bit through the right thigh, as we rest both arms onto the floor, out like a T shape again. So both shoulders are on the mat, and we can pull that heel in close to the buttock as we circle into our left hip. So we're drawing this shape. Imagine you're drawing the shape with your knee, and the movement is coming into your hip. That's it. And yeah, if you encounter a lot of kind of clicks and catches in your hip with this movement, I really encourage you to sort of tighten around your hip. Imagine you're moving against resistance, right? That's it. Create a bit of tension in the hip joint. So you're actually finding some more control over the movement and utilizing some of those muscles around the joint while we move it. Yeah, and go in the other direction too. But just notice as you create tension around your hip to move, are you also maybe finding tension on other areas that maybe don't have to, like the jaw or the eyes? That's it. Still feeling your breath. Okay, let's explore the twist. As we keep both shoulders on the floor, you can feel your left knee coming out a bit more to the left, and then bring the knee across until that left hip starts to lift into a twist through the spine. And just notice, how far do you go into the twist before your left shoulder wants to lift? And try to keep the left shoulder from lifting as best you can. So you're just noticing the motion through the spine from the pelvis up. Yeah, you can let your head roll in the opposite direction of the knee. Aware of how it's feeling on this side to move in this direction. Nice. And then, yeah, once you feel ready to land into this twist, you want to stay there and feel you can have support under your left knee. You can also just rest your foot on the floor or even on your bottom leg. That's another option, okay? So feel the length in the body from the right foot to the head. Feeling those ends of your body lengthening away from one another. And then if it's comfortable to stretch more through your left leg out to the right, you can try that out. And relax and rest the upper body a little to the left as you notice where the breath moves. Each inhale, let the breath fill the center of your body. And maybe from that center with each exhale, you can feel a little longer. Really nice. One last breath here. All right, and then go ahead and bend the knee. Take your time to unwind out of that. Whew. Coming back again onto your back with the feet on the floor once more. So let's just check in once again with some of the core support here in order to lift both legs eventually together. Let's just do one at a time still though, in a kind of marching movement. So you can again take your hands to your belly, relax, maybe move the shoulder blades a bit down the back. So find your inhale, softening down into your belly, relax through the pelvic floor. As you exhale, feeling that widening, drawing, flattening sort of action through the belly while you lift the left foot. That's it. And then try to lift the right foot. You got it. So you've got both knees above your hips. And notice what's gone on, with your belly, with your low back position. Have your ribs kind of lifted. And just try to keep your low ribs as best you can into the floor. Yeah. And then start to slowly bend that left knee again to lower your foot with as much control down to the ground. And then the right foot follows. Okay? So this time let's lead with the right foot. So feel a full breath in. As you exhale, drawing up and in through the belly, through the pelvic floor as you raise your right knee above the hip. Try not to lift the low ribs at all. Keep them resting into the floor while you lift the left knee. We've got both knees up above the hips. Can you relax the shoulders a bit? And then slowly lower your right foot first. Yes, try to land it as lightly as you can. And then the left leg last. Whew. All right. Let's take our block, or whatever you're using, up high, I'd say, in between the inner thighs, the tops of the inner thighs. So you're squeezing this block with your inner thigh muscles, the tops of those inner thighs. So really kind of upper groin or lower groin. I don't know. But groin muscles, upper thigh muscles, inner thigh muscles, all that. So as we connect with the inner thigh muscles, it might help you connect with the other core muscles. Like pelvic floor, like deep abdominal muscles, deep low back muscles, all that good stuff. So squeeze into the block, yeah? And just as you squeeze your block or your object, notice whether your pelvis tips or tilts, okay? In one direction or the other. And try to do neither direction. Try to keep your pelvis in that neutral shape where you're not pushing your low back into the floor, nor are you lifting your low back and pushing your ribs to the ceiling, So keep the backs of the ribs resting towards the floor, while you ideally have just the tiniest bit of space between the back of the waist and the ground, all right? Squeezing the block. Feeling the work in the inner thighs, not so much the glutes for now. All right. Then what happens as you maybe just start out by lifting your heels? Walk your toes as close to the buttocks as you can while still having them on the floor. All right. Hands can be on those lower ribs, and as you get lighter and lighter on your toes, notice what happens. You got it. Maybe lift your shins kind of parallel to the floor for a moment. In fact, let's go all the way up. Let's lengthen these legs up towards the sky to where it's a comfortable stretch for you, obviously, always. And then from there, we're going to slowly, with control, bend the knees all the way until the heels land somewhere around the buttocks. And then you're going to try to slowly lower the feet. Yes, we're going to rise in a bridge. As your feet lower, push down through them. Squeeze the block. Lift through the hips. That's it. Feel a full breath in. You got it. As you exhale, let's lower back to the back of the pelvis. Feel as your sacrum lands. You connect again with the block, squeezing the inner thighs into it. Broadening through the belly, getting lighter on those feet to bring them off the floor and stretching them up again. There we are. Feel a full breath in. As you exhale, slowly bend the knees, lower the feet. Try not to move the ribs. Standing into your feet, feel your inhale as you rise into bridge. And you can let the exhale lower you back to the floor. Finding your breath moving in. Exhale, squeeze a little more through the block, broaden through the belly, rest through the ribs as you stretch your legs up. That's it. And just keep it going like that. Explore this movement on your own, feeling free to keep your hands resting on your ribs or resting beside you. You can use the support of your arms in your bridge shape, but really we're trying to emphasize and notice how the breath supports you as you raise and lower your feet and your hips, as you find a little strength and support through the core, running up through the inner thighs, the pelvic floor, the deep abdominal muscles. Let's go for one more full cycle so that we end our cycle in bridge eventually. So once you're back in bridge, let's be here with each breath flowing in. Where do you sense some expansion, some softness maybe even? And with each exhale, where can you find a little more maybe lift through the pubic bone or length through the neck? Good. Feel one last breath. Excellent. Let's roll it back down to the floor. Whew. Take out that block. You might feel that in the inner thighs a little bit. So maybe we'll just find a bit of movement in the hips that actually stretches and strengthens a tiny bit through the inner thighs as well. So take your feet more like mat distance apart. And we're going to use the heels as pivot points. So lift your toes. So your knees and your feet are separated, right? At about mat width apart. So now, as you exhale, slowly draw in, like you're trying to slowly squeeze the air out of a big balloon between your thighs, okay? And then as you inhale, that balloon expands and you're opening the knees out and down towards the floor. So you might have to reposition your feet as you know what we're doing here. As you exhale again, find that drawing in and up action as you press the thighs slowly, deflating that balloon. As you breathe in, you're slowly letting it expand again, opening out through the knees. And keep it going like that. A couple more, nice and slow. And again, you're doing your best not to move much at all in the pelvis or the waist or the ribs. Feeling the movement primarily in your hips and, of course, with your breath. What moves as you inhale with your breath? How does your breath move you or find strength with the exhale? Yeah. How does your breath support you in this movement? Slowing it down for one more. Then lower the feet to the floor. Let's bring the soles of the feet together, open the knees apart. So we're now just getting a sort of more relaxed stretch into those inner thighs. So with the soles of the feet together, knees fall open. And just notice here with that action of the knees falling open, sort of resting more with gravity, has your pelvis kind of tipped forward, has your low back arched a lot away from the floor. And what can you do to keep your pelvis in that more neutral position? Low ribs resting, a little bit of engagement still in the belly, but you're relaxed. You're relaxed as best you can be while still holding that neutral position through the pelvis, through the waist. So finding the support needed to be here, but as efficiently as possible with each breath. Just a couple more cycles. All right, so maybe over several breaths here. So it might take 3 or 4, 5 or 6, I don't know. We'll see. To slowly bring the knees back up, like a couple millimeters at a time. So go for it. You'll start to feel, you might even encounter a little bit of shaking in this movement, a little bit of shaking in the legs or inner thighs. They might kind of bounce as you do it. Yeah, that's it. So we're kind of slowly kind of shortening, contracting through those inner thigh muscles to really, really slowly bring the knees away from the floor while breathing. Excellent. Until eventually your feet start to separate and it becomes a little more awkward. You walk your feet apart. Let's go ahead and hug both knees in, roll around from side to side. So if you noticed any discomfort in your low back, just check in with that. Find a bit of massage into it. All right, so we've been on the back for a whole lot because all that stuff is just so much fun. So let's come on over onto our side. Rest for a couple breaths because we have been on the back for a while. Don't come up too quick. And then whenever you feel ready, let's make our way onto hands and knees. And, feel free to have a little padding underneath your knees. It's the beauty of having the two mats crisscrossing. You've got a little extra padding in the center. So let's go ahead and find some cat and cow movements in the spine. But we're going to add on a movement through one leg at a time, alternating the legs. And we'll find it in a couple different ways. Okay, so have your hands right underneath your shoulders and your knees pretty much right under the hips. And let's Let's exhale and round the back. So what rounds the back? We pull up and in through the belly, we press through the hands, and we feel the tailbone curling towards the floor as the head lowers. So we're really pulling the front of the body up, right? When we're rounding our back. And then as you inhale and open up through the tailbone and the head, let's go ahead and let the left leg point back, knee bent. So we're finding a bit of space in the front of that left hip. And then with the exhale, just simply lower the knee as we slowly round. So we have both knees on the floor, both hands on the floor as we round and push the floor away. And then again, inhale, open up, and slowly send that right knee to point back. So the right knee almost becomes an extension of the spine, right? And then lowering both knees and on the exhale, rounding. And just keep it going like that. Feeling some more space through the front, left hip, left thigh, and then rounding away again. This time, let's go for one full cat tilt. We're going to change it up a little bit. And this time as you exhale, we're going to round the back and draw the left knee in towards our belly, pulling it up and in. On the inhale, just let the knee come down to the floor, arching slowly. And then with the exhale, slowly draw the right knee in as we round the back. So feel that a couple more times on each side. Do you tend to shift over off to the side when your one knee lifts? And can you try your best to keep your pelvis in the center? That's it. Good. Feel another inhale here. And then with the exhale, let's go ahead and walk the hands a little forward of the shoulders so we can bring ourselves back with the exhale, downward facing dog. Good. Let's pause into our downward dog. So, yeah, you can just notice here how things are feeling in your legs. Feeling free to lift and lower the heels together or one at a time while you bend the other knee. Sometimes when we do this movement, the pedaling in downward dog, our hips really kind of shift around. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. This is a lovely way to get the movement into the spine when we sort of shift the hips from side to side in our downward dog as we pedal. But, it's also nice to keep some stability in the pelvis and feel just the movement from the hips down through the knee into the ankle. How does that change things? All right. Let's go ahead and lower the knees to the ground. And we're going to step the right foot forward between the hands. So with this right foot forward between the hands, let's feel the support of our legs. So let's stand up where we have our shoulders above the hips. We can push a little more into this right foot, press into the top of that back foot, especially into the top of the back foot, because that way you're going to have less weight directly on this kneecap, and it's going to feel a lot better in your knee to share the load with your foot. All right. So let the tailbone feel heavy, kind of lift a little more through the pubic bone, and let's go ahead and send the arms overhead. Let's move with the breath here, coming in and out of a twist. We'll get some motion into the shoulders as well. Feel as you inhale, a little more lift through the spine. And then with the exhale, stay upright and just turn to the right as your arms go wide and down beside you. And then inhale them wide again and up as you face forward. And just exhale again to the right as the arms come down, Breathing in as these arms sweep up to center. So feel how your breath supports this movement, how your legs are your stability. That's it, because there's a little bit of balance involved, you might notice. Let's go for one more. We're going to hold this twist. So if you like, you can rest your left hand on that right knee and keep the right arm stretching out to the side. Just feel a couple breaths here in your twist. Nice and tall through the spine, straight up. Nice. As you breathe in, let's go ahead and lift again, both arms facing forward. And as you exhale, we'll take the hands back to the floor. Let's curl the back toes under and lift off of that back knee. Maybe a bit of relief through it. And as you reach long through the back leg, let's see if we can send the hips just a little lower, bending more into that front knee. That's it. Now, can you bring your palms to the floor? So you might have to kind of walk your right foot a little out of the way. Palms right underneath your shoulders. That's it. Let's take this back into plank pose, just briefly. That's it. So with both legs stretched long and strong, push the floor away from you. And feel the ends of your spine lengthening away from one another. Tailbone reaches back, crown of the head, send it forward. That's it. Now lower the knees to the floor. Let's come all the way down onto our bellies. And just take a couple breaths there. So get comfortable, shifting as you need to. We can relax and rest your head on your hands. And here, are you able to sense the breath a little more into the back? So much like when we're resting on our back, when our belly rises and falls with each inhale and exhale, can you feel your lower back sort of moving similarly? That's it. Feel the expansiveness into your lower back, that fullness with your inhale. And then allowing the lower back to settle sort of into the body a little more with each exhale. Nice. So what you might do is make a pillow for your head with your hands and rest your forehead on your hands. I might just keep mine up a little bit. So let's feel both legs. Imagine someone's pulling on them back to the wall that's behind you. And try to find both tops of your feet into the ground and press a little bit the pubic bone into the floor. So the idea is to try to feel your tailbone reaching away from your head towards your feet. That's it, as the crown of your head reaches beyond the front of your mat. Keep all that length in the spine, as well as this tiny little lift through the belly. Pubic bone still rooted. Flesh of the belly sort of drawing a bit slightly up. While you press down through the top of your right foot, can you lift your left leg up a little bit? Doesn't have to be much. It's not really about how high the leg lifts, but more about lengthening it back as it lifts. And then lower down, press into that foot, the left foot. As you raise, reach back and raise through the right leg. Try that a couple more times in each leg. Noticing when you're lifting the one leg, does that same hip want to lift as well? And try again not to find movement in the pelvis or even into the low back or waist much at all. Moving more from the hip. So this is tricky. It's not about how high. It's about refining the movement and finding more of the support and strength into maybe the back thigh, glutes, working into there. Okay, let it go. Whew. What you might do is bring your feet in the air and just
let the feet rock a little side to side. So now we're allowing movement into the pelvis. Yeah, just loosening it up. That's it. All right, and then bring your hands back to the floor beside your chest. And we can push ourselves back and come into a brief child's pose here. Just allow for a little softness into the neck and shoulders as you breathe down into your low back. Really nice. Let's come back up onto hands and knees and just briefly back into a downward facing dog. As you find and feel the lift of your hips up, send your heels to stretch back and down. Can you pause with the breath here? Find some relative stillness in your downward dog and just feel the inhale. And be present with the exhale. All right, we can come into lunge on the left side. I'm coming into it from table pose today. You're welcome to do the same, or from downward dog. Left foot forward, right knee on the floor under the hip. As we come up, shoulders land above the hips. And so you want to see if you can feel your tailbone again drawing down as you're pulling up through the front of the pelvis. Front of the pelvis draws up. Tailbone, back of the pelvis draws down. Press into the top of your back foot. The more support you feel in your feet, the more lift you're going to find through the spine. So with that lift, let's bring the arms overhead. Feel the inhale here. As you exhale, let's slowly turn to the left as the arms come wide and down. And then breathe in, send them up, facing forward again. So coming into the twist with the exhale. Finding yourself lifting tall through center again on the inhale. Lovely. Nice. One more time. Let's pause into the twist. So we can rest the right hand on that bent knee. Stretch out the left arm from your shoulder. Imagine like someone's pulling on it a bit. So you're not kind of leaning back, but most of the time when we're coming into this twist, we tend to kind of lean forward to avoid stretching that tight front hip on the right side. So just see if you can feel yourself standing tall still, shoulders over the hips, while you're here, feeling each breath. Really nice. Let's inhale and come on back to face forward. Lift the arms. And we'll exhale back to the floor, hands to the ground, or fingertips to the floor, anything like that. Curl those back toes under, reach through the back leg. We're in that high lunge. Feel the length and the strength in your back leg, pushing through the heel. Really, this back leg is already in plank. Can you feel that? So when you take your left foot a little out to the side, you can bring both hands right underneath your shoulders. So it's like you're already in plank. And then you can just take your left leg back to meet your right. And here you are. Push the floor away. And feel your breath. How does it support you here? Really nice. As you exhale, lower the knees. The hips are going to be forward of the knees. Let them stay there. But try not to let the hips lower first. So, can you bend your elbows and lower your whole front body at once? I know it's a lot harder than it looks. And then you have a chance to rest. So as you rest here, now sense the front of your body, supported by the ground, letting it soften into that support a little more with each exhale. Okay, so you can make a pillow with your hands and keep your head resting on your hands, or let it hover, any of those options that feels good in your neck and your upper back. So once again, let's feel both legs reaching back. Tailbone reaches back with your legs as you kind of press down through the pubic bone and draw up and in a little more through the front of the body. Let's see if we can feel both legs reaching back as both legs lift. A little bit away from the floor, doesn't have to be a lot. That's it. Now with the legs off the ground, knees staying straight, yeah, let's try to squeeze the legs together and then open them maybe a little wider, maybe something like hip distance or shoulder distance. It's going to be different for each of us. Just allow the legs to go wider and then together, and feel this with your breath. Breathing in as you open, breathing out as you squeeze in. So similar to what we were doing, in a way where you're going slowly, like you're squeezing out the air of that balloon as you draw the legs in. That's it. You're going to feel work in the glutes. One more time. Really nice. And then relax. Whew. Again, maybe bend the knees, feet going swaying side to side, loosening into those hips. And even into the low back. You got it. And then let's bring the feet and the hands back to the floor so we can push away. Come back into a child's pose here. Knees can go as wide apart as you like. Rest your head into something, whether it's the ground or a block or your hands. Feel the forehead soften into that support. Good. Once again, let's come up into downward facing dog. And we'll bring it back. All right, let's walk our feet and our hands towards each other. And what we're going to do is basically just go perpendicular on your mat. So you're facing the side edge of your mat. And then if you've got, okay, maybe we should roll up. Because we're going to find a little bit of movement into the hips a bit in this wide-legged motion. So you can have a couple blocks or something to bring the ground a little closer to you under your hands. Or you can use like a chair in front of you or a low stool, table, side table, something like that. Okay? So let's take the feet wider apart. At least shoulder distance. Probably you want them a little wider for what we're going to be doing. Let's turn the toes out with the knees. So let's go down with a little bend in both knees, and the bum is sort of reaching back to the wall that's behind you. All right. So the idea is to try to keep your chest nice and wide, forward, straight ahead from your hips. Your hips and your shoulders are going to stay in the same line the whole time. While we bend a little deeper into the right knee, your left leg straightens. While you bend into the left knee, your right leg straightens. So I'm kind of walking my blocks with me. So that's why blocks are a little maybe better than a chair, but a chair is fine as well, sort of in front of you. That's it. So feel what's going on in those legs, in those hips. Good, and then come back to center. Bend through both knees. And then let's see if we can support ourselves without our props. So can you bring the palms together here in front of the heart? You're still forward a little with the chest. You're still bent quite a bit in your hips. Your bum reaches back. Crown and chest reach forward. Now, what happens as you bend deeper into the right knee and straighten your left, and then bend deeper into your left knee? And can you feel how it might be helpful to not only feel the support of your legs, but also draw up through the pelvic floor a little more in this motion? That's it. Feel the support all the way up into the core. If you're wanting to be upright, give that a try. You got it. Last one to the left. And then back to center. Let's bend deeply. Let's come into a goddess shape just for a moment. So we've got the hips lower. As the hips are going lower, it's more important to draw up from the floor through the thighs, inner thighs, core, lifting tall through the spine. As we take the arms out, we can bend the elbows. Push them back a little more as we draw up the pubic bone. Feel another breath. Whew. Excellent. Let's come forward. Pivot on your feet, so now your toes face more the long edge of your mat. So you're in a wide-legged forward bend. Yeah, and you can bring your hands to the floor or to your props. And feel your breath. Lovely. You might want to rise up a little bit once again, either up onto your fingertips or onto blocks, where we can walk our feet in a little closer together. Maybe somewhere between hip and shoulder distance apart. So let's begin to shift the weight back a little bit towards the heels. Can you notice that? And then let's come down into a squat. As we come down into a squat, our heels may lift. That's why it's nice to have our hands onto something. If you feel in your squat that you're kind of going to fall forward, or if you're going to fall back, if you lean back into your heels, then just keep your weight forward and you can always lift your heels. That's perfectly good. If you can be back onto your heels and take your hands together, that's another option. Be where you can feel balanced and supported, and then follow the breath nice and deep down into your belly, down into the pelvic floor. As you exhale, what do you sense? Where can you find more support? Really good. And let's come back to the bum. We can use our hands. Woo, stretch out the legs. Excellent. Okay. Let's lean back into our hands. We'll use their support. And then once again, take the heels to the floor. So the sort of similar to what we were doing on our backs when we were bringing the knees together and apart. So heels are down, maybe even slightly, somewhere around mat width, wider, narrower, anything you like. So let's slowly move with the breath. As you inhale, let the knees move away from one another. As you exhale, squeeze slowly in. Knees may be resting together. Finding as you inhale, Some outward rotation through those hips. On the exhale, slowly drawing in. So we don't often do the inward rotation of the hips. It can feel rather awkward sometimes. So the next time you do it, let's hold it just to get a sense of how it feels. You might even try to bring your heels a little further apart if you want, to allow for the thighs to come towards each other. They don't have to necessarily touch. You might just notice a bit of sensation in the outer thigh along each side. Let's be here for another breath. Good. And then maybe just for a breath or two, let that left knee fall out while the right knee falls in and down. Okay? So the right knee is pointing more in front of your hip. So we're encouraging that inward rotation through the hip. And your right hip will lift a little bit away from the floor. That's okay. Just try to feel your hip and your knee sort of moving away from each other. As this knee goes forward and down, the right hip goes back. All right, and then come on back up through center. As the right knee now goes over to the right, your left knee falls in and down straight from your hip. So you probably want somewhere around a 90-degree bend in this left knee. And as you're encouraging your left knee to move towards the floor, and you certainly don't have to get it all the way there, that's just the direction it's moving in. Feel your left hip going sort of in the opposite direction. How does that feel as you breathe through it? Really nice. All right, and then slowly bring the knees back up, feet in together. And we'll stretch out the legs in front of us and just do a little rolling in and out of the straight legs now. So it's a little less intense, just more loose and relaxed. That's it. Good. And then let's make our way once again onto the back. Ending our practice. Wiggle around your hips, your pelvis. We did a lot of work and a lot of movement around this whole pelvis, hips region, belly, low back. So notice how this area feels and support it as you like. So keeping your knees bent might support the low back. Bringing a bolster under the legs, maybe that's good enough. Feeling free to keep your hands resting on your belly or having them out away from your sides to allow for the shoulders to come a little closer to the floor. Once again, encourage your whole face to soften. Let go of any facial expression, any facial tension. And can you just connect with the depth of your breath, with the natural movement of each breath flowing in and down, and then out and up? And are you able to sense the breath any differently in your belly, in your pelvic floor, even into your lower back? So just open up your awareness into those spaces as you center in on the movements of your breath there.
So as you let yourself remain relaxed and still, just notice what you can feel, sensing your whole body, sensing your breath's movements. You can start to slowly move and reawaken your body. And feel free to enjoy another stretch if you like. Bring both knees back in for a couple breaths. You can rock side to side until you eventually roll all the way to one side. And come on to make your way up into a comfortable seated shape. Let's take a moment, bring the palms together in front of the heart, bowing down to your practice this evening. I thank you for joining me.